Imagine this. Sales in supermarkets will come to a halt, hospitals can no longer function to treat patients, and petrol stations will also stop operating. Surely this extreme chaos will unfold in a devastating way. But once humanity had already faced a similar crisis known as a black swan during the COVID-19 pandemic, which disrupted the global supply chain. Yet, humans still showed great resilience to bring life back to normal. However, have we ever imagined what would happen if one of the essential needs of modern life, electricity and the internet, were cut off worldwide for a long period of time, causing a global blackout? So, in this video, we will look at what could happen during a global blackout, where electricity and the internet are gone for an extended period. In the first year AD, the global population was 300 million, then reached 500 million by 1650, surpassed 1 billion by 1800, and today there are more than 8 billion people on Earth. Electricity is one of the basic necessities of modern life, and it is hard to imagine what would happen if the electricity we use so easily every day suddenly became unavailable. More than 2 centuries ago, Benjamin Franklin conducted an experiment by flying a kite during a lightning storm to prove that lightning carried electrical energy. At that time, humans were searching for the cheapest and easiest way to light their homes at night, and scientists believed that electricity was the solution. Electricity was not discovered in a single experiment, but after Franklin's findings, electricity began to be associated with light. Since then, several important scientists began experimenting with electricity, including Alessandro Volta, Michael Faraday, Thomas Edison, and Nikola Tesla. In September 1882, a house in Appleton, USA became the first home to receive electricity powered by hydroelectric energy, using the direct current system invented by Thomas Edison. Nikola Tesla, who was once Edison's apprentice, later created alternating current, which could generate electricity on a much larger and more efficient scale. At first, electricity was only used to light up homes. Later, after the invention of various household appliances such as refrigerators and washing machines in the 1950s, the demand for electricity increased rapidly. Today, electricity is one of the most essential parts of human life. If a global electric blackout were to last longer than usual, humanity would realize that even though life today is much safer, it is also more fragile and highly vulnerable. The causes of large-scale blackouts could include natural disasters such as earthquakes or hurricanes, terrorist threats, and even the risk of a massive solar storm in the future. There have been several examples of widespread power outages that have occurred in the world. On July 13, 1977, during the peak of summer in New York City, a lightning strike hit a power grid, which was already overloaded by heavy air conditioning usage, causing fires and triggering a major blackout. In the poorer neighborhoods, riots broke out, and within 25 hours of the power outage, there were more than 1,000 fires and 1,600 stores were looted. The estimated losses over those 2 days were about $300 million, equivalent to 1.2 billion US dollars today. In August 2003, the largest blackout in North American history occurred, cutting off power for several days across parts of the northeastern United States and Canada, affecting 55 million people. About 100 people died from various causes, including carbon monoxide poisoning from electric generators, suffocation after being trapped in enclosed spaces, and heart attacks among those with chronic health conditions. Hospitals went into panic as they were flooded with heat stroke patients, since air conditioning was not functioning in the scorching weather. On July 30th to 31st, 2012, the world's largest blackout occurred, affecting 620 million people, half of India's population, or 1/10 of the world's population, also during a heat wave. India is the third largest producer and consumer of electricity after the US and China. The extreme heat drove electricity usage beyond capacity, causing the grid to fail. This disrupted daily life so severely that the government declared a public holiday. As many workers were trapped in metro trains, businesses were forced to shut down, and miners in eastern India were stuck underground. Electricity supply was only fully restored on August 1st, 2012. The most recent case was in February 2021, when a blackout in Texas, USA lasted for several days during winter, affecting 7 million people. For 4 days, Texans were forced to endure freezing temperatures. Daily necessities ran out in stores. Tap water was disrupted in homes and hospitals, and some houses even caught fire as people burned wood indoors to stay warm. What will happen if a global electric blackout lasts a long time? In the first few hours of a blackout, traffic lights will stop working, causing chaos on the roads and a spike in accidents. Mobile phones may still have a signal since telecommunication towers have backup generators, but panic will spread among users and phone lines will become congested, leading to the service disruptions. Once all generators powering the towers run out, people will lose connection entirely. Without mobile phones, the internet will no longer be accessible. Local authorities and emergency services such as the police, fire department, and ambulances will have to rely on radio communication. After a few days, response times to emergencies will become slower, while the number of cases will rise. After a week, riots and clashes in public areas will increase as stored supplies run out. Food kept in refrigerators will spoil and become inedible. On top of that, private vehicles will no longer be able to operate because petrol stations, which require electricity to pump fuel, will stop functioning. Public transportation will also shut down and workers will not be able to reach their workplaces. Modern life, which depends heavily on online systems, will collapse, and money in banks will become inaccessible. Only cash will serve as a lifeline to buy food and water, both of which will skyrocket in price. At this point, there is no denying that humanity will descend into chaos. Hospitals will be heavily affected, with ventilation, heating, and air conditioning systems shutting down. Electrical equipment that depends entirely on power, such as life support and breathing machines, will be in critical condition, surviving only on backup generators. Treatment and operating rooms will fall into darkness, making it impossible to save lives. Another major tragedy could occur at nuclear plants, which rely on electricity for their cooling systems. Giant backup generators may help, but if gasoline supplies run out or cannot be delivered in time, nuclear reactors risk overheating. This could cause a nuclear core meltdown, spreading radiation around the plant's surroundings. This actually happened in 2011, when Japan's Fukushima nuclear plant lost electricity after an earthquake and tsunami. The potential for disasters like this is always present, and humanity has the responsibility to look ahead and take preventive measures before such a catastrophe strikes. Global Internet Blackout. The internet began to be commercialized about 33 years ago, and today human life depends heavily on 24-hour internet access. In 1995, less than 1% of the global population used the internet. 20 years later, 3.5 billion people had access to it. Today, 66% of the world's population, or 5.3 billion people, use the internet daily. It is almost unimaginable how billions of people who rely on the internet would suddenly cope if it were unavailable for a long period of time. For many of us, just a few hours without internet is already unsettling. A total internet blackout would cause nearly every type of business to shut down and suffer massive losses. Since people rely on databases and online communication for banking, trade, and countless other operations, more than 60% of internet traffic comes from smartphone users. Every day, 347.3 billion emails are sent, 8.5 billion Google searches are made, and 1.5 million songs are played on Spotify every minute. It would also halt 24% of global online purchases, representing around 6 trillion USD in transactions across more than 26.5 million e-commerce platforms worldwide. A massive solar storm could destroy satellites, electrical grids, and computer systems around the globe. According to David Eagleman, a neuroscientist at Stanford University, what bombs or terrorists could never achieve might happen on a global scale in an instant due to solar storms. And geomagnetic storms from the sun are inevitable in the future. After one day without internet. In just one day without internet, tech giants like Facebook and Google would lose over £300 million in advertising revenue. People would grow restless without access to social media and being cut off from the outside world. Many daily activities would be disrupted as credit and debit cards could no longer be used, and money stored in banks would not be immediately accessible. Today, 92% of the world's money exists in digital form, meaning most of our wealth is essentially stored online. Even companies would be unable to pay their employees. Only 8% of global transactions are made with physical cash. After 1 week without internet. Many businesses and companies rely on the internet to operate, conduct financial transactions, and communicate. After 1 week without internet, major problems would arise in supply chains, online sales, and banking transactions, causing the economy to begin collapsing. Hospitals might still function, but not at full capacity. Medical services would slow down significantly without access to online systems. Logistics would be among the hardest hit since transportation schedules for airplanes, ships, and trains depend on internet-based telecommunications. Navigation systems would also stop working. Consumer goods could no longer be delivered, leaving supermarket shelves empty. The global food supply chain has become highly complex, requiring telecommunication networks to coordinate deliveries. Stock markets would shut down completely as banks fail to process transactions. The financial system itself might not survive, especially cryptocurrency trading, which relies entirely on global internet networks. After 1 month without internet, scientists have written about the possibility of the internet being cut off for months or even years, leading to what they call an internet apocalypse within the coming decades. As mentioned, solar geomagnetic storms pose a serious threat to modern telecommunication systems. NASA has stated that peak solar electromagnetic activity is expected to occur within this decade, with the potential to cripple modern technology completely. Within a month of no internet, most governments around the world would face serious crises. Riots and chaos would erupt everywhere due to shortages of daily necessities and cash. There is also the possibility that certain groups, who may have long prepared for such an event, would take advantage of the situation to push for a reset of the global capitalist system. Extreme solar storms could shut down the internet for months. Solar storms are frequent natural events on the sun, but on September 1st to 2nd, 1859, a massive solar storm struck, disabling compasses worldwide and causing ships to lose their bearings at sea. Scientists believe that what happened 164 years ago was a giant geomagnetic storm, later named the Carrington event. On that day, auroras, usually only seen near the North and South poles, were visible as far south as Mexico. The sun has an 11-year solar cycle, and at the peak of each cycle, the sun's magnetic field reaches its maximum intensity. During these periods, abnormal solar activity can release particles that reach Earth, creating geomagnetic storms. And today, human life is vastly different compared to 1859, with the internet being central to daily activity. The global internet is connected through undersea cables. Computers manage almost every aspect of modern life, from traffic control, power grids, banking, and healthcare, to entertainment. If a Carrington event-level storm were to strike in the 21st century, the impact would depend on the storm's intensity, ranging from manageable disruptions to unimaginable disaster. First, satellites in orbit would be disabled, cutting off navigation and communication systems. The most recent example was in March 2022 when 40 Starlink satellites were destroyed by a geomagnetic storm from the sun. Solar superstorms or extreme solar storms could wipe out entire power grids, leading to massive blackouts. Scientist Sangeetha Abdu-Jyothi has stated that the optical fiber network infrastructure used today is vulnerable to such storms, and a global internet outage could last for months. The scientific community is aware of this threat but has yet to establish effective protocols to handle it, if it occurs in the future. Unlike earthquakes, data on the sun's magnetic field is still very limited. NASA has been collecting information using AI technology to improve preparedness, but the best scientists can currently do is issue warnings only about 30 minutes before an event occurs. Just 100 years ago, daily human activity relied solely on physical energy: walking, working, and finding food. But today, electricity has become the driving force of human life, and almost every system we have created is interconnected and dependent on it. If one aspect collapses, many others will fail alongside it. We can clearly see how deeply humanity depends on the internet, using it constantly in every aspect of life. The more modern our way of living becomes, the greater the impact when these systems are disrupted. And as we all know, there are still places in this world where people live without electricity or internet. Reminders of just how fragile modern civilization really is.